Tonight on Mississippi Insight, a new rapper but the same danger. The former Mississippi Attorney General who won billions from tobacco, big tobacco, talks about the rise of vaping. The Mississippi State Lottery, a few months before the first ticket sales, what we can expect. And Hattiesburg Mayor Toby Barker on his plans to grow the hub city in dealing with a growing problem from crime. Hello and welcome to Mississippi Insight. I'm Byron Brown. Thank you for joining us. First tonight, the race for Mississippi governor and the endorsement question. In particular, Bill Waller Jr. declining to endorse fellow Republican and runoff opponent Tate Reeves. Reeves is taking on Attorney General Jim Hood. I spoke with Mississippi Today's Adam Ganucheau about Waller's decision and what that could mean for the upcoming race. You know, we're talking about Bill Waller Jr. He did not endorse Tate Reeves. What kind of impact does that, and are you surprised by that?
I am. You know, I think typically in Republican primaries, even these close ones we've had through recently, through the years, Republicans tend to get on the same team by the end, by the general election. They tend to really want to pull the rope the same way. Bill Waller, he always kind of has been his own man. He ran a campaign that was unlike any Republican campaign really run in Mississippi to date, at least in the modern era. And his policy ideas were very clearly different than the front runner Tate Reeves's, and still, I think most expected him to come around and endorse the Republican, but he obviously has chosen not to. Not exactly sure why. He hasn't really gone into great detail about that, but if you look at what happened in a 3-week runoff, it's not too difficult to see why he might be even considering, staying out of this. Tate Reeves, he shifted his campaign strategy initially back in the primary before the runoff. Reeves, didn't really go hard on his opponents, Bill Waller or Robert Foster. He talked a lot about some of the accomplishments that he had, gotten done for the state over the last 8 years, and he talked a lot about his conservatism. It got to the runoff with Bill Waller, and he shifted that strategy. He started attacking Bill Waller left and right. There were some nasty comments made. I mean, there were mailers. I saw one mailer the weekend before the runoff that had a picture of Bill Waller, a picture of AOC, Representative Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders, Nancy Pelosi, and a couple other national Democrats, basically comparing Bill Waller to these very liberal national figures that have been, sort of bastardized in the press and the media. So, look, if you're Bill Waller and you're trying to decide after that 3 weeks, after being called a liberal by Tate Reeves and folks supporting Tate Reeves that whole time, it's not too surprising, I suppose, for him to have made this decision. But like I said, it did surprise me. I think it surprised a lot of people in Republican circles.
What do you think it means going forward into the general election here?
Look, this is huge for Jim Hood. This is a very Republican state. There's no getting around that. I thought, had Bill Waller endorsed Tate Reeves, a lot of those supporters, so the 46% of Republican voters who cast their ballots in the runoff for Bill Waller, I think Bill Waller's endorsement of Reeves would have meant something to them. I'm not saying that this is going to win Hood the election by any stretch. Again, this is a Republican state. I fully expect President Trump to make at least one visit to Mississippi on behalf of Tate Reeves. I think the last thing the White House wants the year before re-elect is a Republican state losing a governor's seat.
What's it going to come down to between the Attorney General and the Lieutenant Governor? Is it going to be really down to the issues and solving these problems, or is it going to be more personality driven? What do you think is going to come down to how voters decide who they're going to vote for?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how much policy sort of is offered from both of these candidates. I think certainly Jim Hood has tried during the primary and even since the runoff to sort of boost his policy positions. I think Tate Reeves, sort of like we saw with Waller in the runoff, he's going to try to paint Jim Hood as a national liberal. He has made many comparisons with, Jim Hood and his policies with Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, AOC, Bernie Sanders, name them, Nancy Pelosi. That list keeps growing and growing, it seems like. But one of the things that I've noted already, and it's hard not to see, Bill Waller while he was getting attacked by Tate Reeves and Tate Reeves' allies, Bill Waller really didn't go there. He didn't take that step, and he never looked Tate in the eyes, during either debate and said, we have these problems because you were in charge for 8 years. He never got personal with it. Waller himself didn't, at least. Jim Hood is not going to do that. Jim Hood has already started, swinging at Tate Reeves. It's going to be bitter. It's going to be nasty. It's going to be, I think, exponentially nastier and more bitter than the Republican primary. I question whether or not both candidates, both Hood and Reeves, can, cooler heads can prevail, and they can really drill down on the issues, and they won't let the personal attacks sort of fuel their debate. But well, like I said, we'll see how all this plays out. I'm really, really interested to watch it and to cover it with y'all and everyone else in the press, and it's going to be an interesting few weeks.
We are coming up on 1 year since the special session on infrastructure. That ended with a number of measures, including the introduction of a state lottery to Mississippi. In just a few months, the first tickets will be on the market. And joining me to talk about this is Tom Shaheen, president of the Lottery Corporation. And Tom, just give us an overview of what is coming up with the lottery.
Well, we're planning on starting sales no later than December 1st. We may try to start a week earlier. We're going to start with instant scratch-off tickets. We'll start with 4 games, a $1 game, a $2 game, a $5 game, and possibly a $10 game. And then in about February, March, we'll come back and introduce Powerball and Mega Millions to Mississippi. And I know everybody's waiting for those, but it takes a little time and a little work to get done before we can get them here. And now we've trying to really get the retailer base built up. We have 354 applications in so far in about 4 weeks. And we're encouraging all retailers who want to sell by the date of our startup that you get your applications in now.
Yeah, a lot of people are interested in that Mega Millions and Powerball. How exciting would that be for the state?
Those games really get exciting when the jackpots get over like $100 million. And they start out at 40, I believe. And so, but once that starts, it gets to 100 million or more, then the excitement starts and people start thinking about, oh, what would I do if I won this money? And they get to plan it all out. And it's kind of a fun thing. I've experienced it myself at other times when I was playing, like in Florida. I played the Florida lottery when I wasn't working there, but
Sure.
I was playing it. And it's a fun thing.
So people who want to get involved, what do they have to do? As you said, as far as applications, what's the process there?
The retailers, they need just to fill out an application, and they need to go through a criminal background check, a credit check, and a tax check. And they're in the business to sell something other than lottery tickets. They're ready to go. We'll take everybody and anybody who has a retailer business that can pass all those checks.
Yeah, what would disqualify a retailer from getting part of it to participate?
A felony, gaming offense, bad credit, owing taxes, that would be the things that would disqualify them.
And you expect a lot of people that will be involved in this once it gets going?
I do. We're hoping to start out with about 1,500 retailers and probably building up to maybe 2,500 over 2 years.
What's the revenue projections for the first year? What are you anticipating that you actually really will bring in?
The first full year, we're only going to be on a 7-month year because we're starting in December, but the first full year for us starts July 1st next year. And we're looking at about $275 million in sales for that first full year. And then gradually every year after that, our strategy and goal is to always have higher sales, higher returns. But in that first year, I think 275 is probably a good number.
Is that a pretty good number for the first year?
Yes, it is for a lottery of this size. You figure if, like I said, if there's 2 million people that are eligible to play and you've got $275 million in sales, then you know you've got a lot of coverage and a lot of playing. And
as far as when you start doing the lottery, how's the public going to find out about the numbers? How's that going to work out, and where are they going to find out who wins?
Well, we're still working on that.
Right.
We're probably not going to do the old type of ball and television drawings anymore. Those are kind of outdated. Requires to be in a studio and it requires all this setup all the time. But the numbers, we will make them available. Maybe we will buy some airtime during news or something of that nature, and it just shows the numbers. Or we may have like some type of animated type of drawing of the balls drawing, and then the numbers pop up. Kind of like you ever seen a Keno board where the numbers just pop up?
Right.
It would be something along that lines.
So you're still working that out?
That's one step at a time. We're fighting to get the scratch-off tickets on sale first because they're the most popular and they're the most easiest ones to get to market quickly. And in Powerball and Mega Millions, there's just a few different things that you have to do, so it takes just a little bit longer.
All right, interesting. All right, we're looking for it. A lot of Mississippians are looking for the water. They've been waiting a long time for it, and going over to Louisiana and Tennessee to play.
We're going to keep you all here.
All right. Tom Sheen, president of the Lottery Corporation here in Mississippi. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
For details on the state lottery and to apply to be a Lottery Corporation retailer, go to mslotteryhome.com. And when we come back, the man who took on big tobacco and won is turning his attention to vaping. The man who took on big tobacco companies on behalf of Mississippi has turned his attention to vaping companies. 12 News' Gerald Harris spoke with former State Attorney General Mike Moore, who says we're dealing with an epidemic.
The use of vapes among school-aged children are becoming more addictive in some cases than tobacco, raising questions of health and safety. Former Mississippi Attorney General Mike Moore took on big tobacco companies and won a multi-billion-dollar settlement. Now he's bringing attention to another epidemic.
Little kids, 10th graders, 11th graders, 12th graders, even younger than that, are getting addicted to it. And when we saw teen smoking go all the way down to less than 5%, for the first time in 20 years, we're seeing teen smoking go up.
He believes it's directly related to vaping.
People are selling Juul as it's safer. It's really not safer. And it's never been shown to be safer. The FDA just kind of let it be on the market. And I know this sounds funny, but they're experimenting with our kids. They're saying, hey, why don't y'all try this for a year or two and let's see how it works out. That's pretty scary because it's not working out very well.
People have been faced with injuries from their vaping devices, including burn and lung disease.
When people get a Juul pod, they take that little thing that they can actually, stick and hide, do it in classrooms, and they suck as hard as they can and they fill their lungs. They're getting a whole lot more nicotine than ever they would get off a cigarette. And it's designed that way. It's designed to get people addicted as quickly as possible.
Juul CEO says he does not see large health risk at this time, but offers his regrets for teens hooked on the product.
I'm sorry that their kids are using the product. And I have empathy for them for what they're going through, dealing with their kids, trying to go through any kind of difficulties, especially in addiction to a product that has nicotine in it.
Juul is currently under investigation by the FDA. Reporting in Pearl, Gerald Harris, 12 News.
When we come back, we are talking with Hattiesburg Mayor Toby Barker's plan to boost the economy in the hub city and how he's handling crime. Now to the hub city, and 2 years after Hattiesburg voted for change, Mayor Toby Barker is talking about what he's accomplished in that time and what's still left to be done. He recently sat down with 12 News' Jesse Finver.
All right, so Toby, this is your third year as mayor of Hattiesburg, and you've gotten a lot done while you've been here in your short time. I wanted to start first with one of the things that you care most about in this community. It's infrastructure. Specifically roads. You've announced a ton of different road projects throughout the city. This is a long-term project. So my first question to you is, this is something that you want to get done by a certain point. When is that point?
Well, the thing about infrastructure is you never finish. We have 350 road miles in the city of Hattiesburg, and I think everyone would agree that we started a little bit behind, and I think we're still behind. And if you want to get things on, for example, a 10-year time period where you pave a road and you know it's good for another 10 years. I mean, we have to get the amount that we're budgeting up to $3.5 million annually. And so, when we came into office, we were at 2.2. Then first budget year was 2.3. Now we're at 2.5. We're going to recommend 2.7 in the next council year, plus the money that was provided to us by the legislature with the Mississippi Infrastructure Modernization Act in 2018. All of that lends itself to us getting to a point where we can kind of hit that $3.5 million mark consistently for roads. So if we could catch up enough where we can get things on a 10-year paving cycle, with understanding that some roads are going to need to be paved more, some less than every 10 years, then I think we've hit kind of a sweet spot. However, I would still argue that we're very much behind in some places, but however, we are making some progress, some considerable progress in all parts of the city.
All right, let's move on to another topic we want to get to. That's crime. This is something that you guys care about a lot here in Hattiesburg. Hattiesburg Police Department is one of the best in the country, in the state. Crime levels have been relatively consistent in your tenure here. However, the HPD has made a number of gang-related arrests recently, including 2 arrests during last week's shooting on Broadway Ave, as well as the raids with the ATF a couple of months back. Plus, y'all had a press conference. The HPD had a press conference announcing more arrests gang-related. I just kind of wanted to get your perspective and your assessment on the city cracking down on this gang-related crime, not wave, but issue.
One crime is too many, whether it's a violent crime or whether it's a nonviolent crime. If it hits you and your family, it's one crime too many. And so, but I've lived here long enough to also know that these things happen in cycles, and you will have, you'll have long periods where there's nothing going on, and then all of a sudden you'll have several things going on. We felt the need last week to address it publicly because we had 4 in such a short amount of time in sort of a relatively close proximity to one another. And we wanted the community to know that they were not related. 2 of them were domestic, which are still tragedies, but there's not this coordinated effort. We know that we had folks from the Jackson area who had come to, committed the crime at Steelman Grocery. And we know that we had the incident on Broadway Drive between members of what turned out to be the same gang. And so we wanted the public to know the facts. I mean, while we believe that again, things go in cycles, one thing that we have tried to be different about in our administration is be totally transparent. I mean, if the public has the information they need, they know what to look for, if they know who to call, then we all become safer. We want this to be a citizen-led push. We want the citizens to have input and be able to affect and alter the outcome of their city. And so that's why we're very open about things that happen, because we want people to know if they see something, they need to say something. And when they hear about a crime committed, we know that someone knows something. They either saw it on Snapchat, they heard about it. We want them to call 582-STOP because, to be honest, a lot of the successes we've had in solving crimes have come from citizen tips, and we want people from the outside to know that if you choose to commit a crime in the city of Hattiesburg, you will be caught, and we have proven that.
Is one of the state's leaders in terms of economic growth, but can that be sustained? Part 2 now of 12 News' Jesse Finver's interview with Mayor Toby Barker.
You guys are adding a lot of businesses along Highway 98. How do you keep this momentum going? What's the long-term and short-term goals of Hattiesburg and the economic outlook going to be?
I think that we've seen Hattiesburg consistently lead in job creation long before I became mayor, but it's been great to see us continue that. Over the last 5 years, we've been #1 in job creation. We're the only metro area in the state of Mississippi that has had income growth, which is a really big deal. Not just jobs, but seeing people progress in their own lives. And so I think the things that we look for is, one, we have to invest in infrastructure, and that's why we have that push, is that you need good roads. You need people to have confidence in where they live and where they work, and so addressing the water and sewer needs before they become unsolvable was a big deal to us and to the previous city council and administration as well. So I think you address infrastructure. You also make sure that your educational institutions have what they need to be successful. We are lucky to have 2 universities who really give us one of the most educated communities in the state of Mississippi. You have a community college who really addresses the workforce needs in our area, and you have several great high schools to choose from in our metro area. Hattiesburg Public School is obviously very near and dear to our hearts, and so we really try to be a champion for our public schools, making sure that if there's any kind of partnership that we can form, we want to do that. If they need help, for example, in 2018, passing a school bond renewal so they can invest $22.5 million more in facilities, we want to do that. And so we really try to be a champion for education system. So infrastructure, education. I think you also have to just address basic quality of life and public safety. The first duty of a municipal government is to provide for the public safety of its citizens, whether fire or police. And we also really invest in making sure that our community looks good when people come in. There are parks here, which is why we pushed the 1 cent Parks and Rec tax this year and passed with 81% of the vote. We also try to make sure that we're being reasonable and use common sense when it comes to regulation. That our first answer when a new business comes in is not no, but the philosophy is how do we get to yes. And finally, I think you just try to make sure that every part of your city is experiencing the same progress. We want to develop new areas, but we also want to redevelop areas that need reinvestment. And that's why you see, if you drive out 98, or if you look at Midtown, I mean, you don't see, the further west you go, the nicer things look. One of the nicest shopping centers we have is right there in Midtown, right there in the central part of our city, because people see the potential and they do reinvest. And now we want to see some more of that retail come east of 49, which is why our city council is looking at some sales tax rebate incentives to really try and bring retail back east of 49 so that our neighborhoods on this side of the interstate and this side of 49 can kind of see that progress as well. And so I think having equity, making sure that every resident is feeling the progress and having access to those kind of job opportunities is important to us. And so all those things, we just try to make sure that we are, as a municipal government, that we're taking a holistic view of economic development, and we're really never being satisfied, striving to be the premier city in the Gulf South.
A reminder, join us this Thursday night. 12 News is hosting the Lieutenant Governor debate. Delbert Hoseman takes on Jay Hughes right here in our studio. That's Thursday night at 6:30 p.m. And thanks to Mississippi Today's Adam Ganucheau, Lottery Corporation President Tom Shaheen, Hattiesburg Mayor Toby Barker for joining us. And for Gerald Harris and Jesse Finver, I'm Byron Brown. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next Saturday night. Make it a good night, everyone.